Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Melanie Cassar, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Heather Bundy. Today marks the 79th anniversary of the sinking of the second 3rd Australian hospital ship Centaur. The Merchant Navy vessel was attacked at 4 a.m. on the 14th of May 1943, while on her second run from Sydney to Port Moresby. The freshly painted white hull was illuminated by powerful spotlights, and clearly visible around the hull was a thick green band, broken in several places by large red crosses. While most people were asleep, a torpedo from a Japanese submarine struck Centaur's port side, hitting the oil fuel tank, which ignited in a massive explosion. Many of those not killed in the explosion or resulting fire were trapped as the ship started to go down, bow first, and then she broke in two. In just 3 minutes, Centaur was gone. Of the 332 people on board, including the civilian crew and medical personnel, only 64 survived. The following afternoon, an American destroyer, USS Mugford, assisted in recovering survivors. The loss of the Centaur deeply shocked Australia. The Centaur came to symbolise the courage of Australian women in war, and importantly, she also became a symbol of the determination to win the war. The wreck of the Centaur was not found until late 2009, some 66 years after its sinking, lying at a depth of more than 2,000 metres off the southern tip of Moreton Island in southeast Queensland. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. We warmly welcome the family of Private Clement Woods, who lost his life during the sinking of the Australian hospital ship Centaur. His story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge Mr. Chauncey McIntosh, Senior Vice President, Lockheed Martin, United States, and the accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome the representatives from the Centaur Association and the Centaur Memorial Fund for Nurses, who are attending this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier.
Cable body, reverse. Cable body, rest on.
If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Cable body, attention. Cable body, present. Arms.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If able, please be seated.
Cable body, shoulder. Arms. Cable body, order. Arms.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Clement Woods. Clement Woods was born on the 31st of May 1911 in Woonona, a northern suburb of Wollongong, New South Wales. Known to his family as Clem, he was the 10th of 12 children born John and Frances Woods. He grew up on the family farm and was educated at St Columbkille's Convent School in Coromel. He went on to work as a mechanic and driver for a haulage company in Woonona. He also obtained a St John's ambulance certificate and served as a volunteer at Bulli Ambulance Station. Woods enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force at Wollongong on the 24th of June 1940. He was allotted to the Australian Army Medical Corps and in November joined the 2nd 12th Field Ambulance. Consisting of a headquarters company and 2 deployable companies, the 2nd 12th Field Ambulance consisted of 12 officers and 250 soldiers, attached to the 23rd Infantry Brigade in order to provide medical support, including battlefield casualty collection and initial wound treatment. In December, Woods was appointed specialist, marked as a carpenter and joiner. He began basic training at Cowra and while still training, married his sweetheart, Beryl King, on the 10th of March 1941, 2 days before his unit left for Darwin for further training. While training in the Northern Territory, the members of the 2nd 12th provided medical support, participated in the construction of 5 small medical hospitals and assisted sappers and pioneer assault units, earning the unit nickname 2nd 12th Pioneers. A daughter, Isabel Mary, was born to Woods' new family on the 22nd of October 1941. She would be 11 months old before her father was granted leave to visit his family in New South Wales and meet her for the first time. About the time of his return, the Pacific War began, and members of the 2nd 12th were attached to the Gulf Force and Sparrow Force and sent to defend the islands of Ambon and Timor, respectively. A grim future lay ahead for them. All of the members of the 2nd 12th serving in the Gulf Force were captured or killed by the Japanese on the 1st of February 1942, with many dying as prisoners of war on Ambon or in Hainan. Many of those who had joined Sparrow Force were also captured. Woods, however, was present during the numerous Japanese bombings attack on Darwin during the first half of 1942. After being relieved by the 2nd 13th Field Ambulance, the 2nd 12th travelled to Woods' hometown of Wollongong, where it took on more personnel to bring it up to full strength. Finally, the unit was ready to deploy overseas, and in early May 1943, 3 companies of the 2nd 12th Field Ambulance took the train to Sydney, boarding the hospital ship HMS Centaur on the 11th of May at Darling Harbour. Woods and around 200 members of the 2nd 12th were to be transported to New Guinea to relieve the 3rd Field Ambulance in Port Moresby. At 4 a.m, on the 14th of May 1943, Centaur was torpedoed by Japanese submarine I-177. It sank in less than 3 minutes. Of the 332 people aboard, there were only 64 survivors, including 15 members of the 2nd 12th. It was 13 hours before they were rescued by USS Mugford. Among the dead was Private Clement Woods, who was believed to have drowned. Survived by his wife and infant daughter, he was 31 years old. His second daughter, Lucy Maria, was born on the 28th of January 1944. With no grave but the sea, today he is commemorated at the Sydney Memorial in Rockwood Cemetery. During 6 years of service, over 200 members of the 2nd 12th Field Ambulance were killed, the highest figure for a non-combatant unit in Australian history. While the unit would go on to deploy personnel in support of Australian combat operations against the Japanese on Ambon, Timor and in Borneo, the majority of the casualties suffered during the sinking of the Centaur. Private Clement Woods' name is listed on the honour roll on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Clement Woods, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Shoulder, arms.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Beautiful body. Breathe in. Arms. Shoulder, arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Beautiful body in words. Turn. Beautiful body. Quick. March.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.